Welcome to all.
So let's start out in volume 2 here, and let's start at the introduction. See if I can figure out how to operate this sweet little thing here. Bingo, there we go, introduction. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit right out of here, and just to get us started. I love Hubbard Lake, and the books are a celebration of Hubbard Lake. It's an awesome place. I spent my whole life here. My parents did. My grandparents, these are two of my grandparents, Milo and Ruth Thompson, lived in Spruce. Okay, this work is a celebration of Hubbard Lake. It celebrates the awesome beauty of the land, the water, the trees, the flowers, the creatures, and the hardy folks who carved out their niche and left their mark. And then skipping down here, this volume describes how the automobile drastically altered the future of the lake as the dirt and then paved arteries from population centers brought vacationers to this gem of the north. At first in a trickle, then a steady stream. The magnificence of Hubbard Lake, a secret no more. I mean, when you come over this hill at the south end here, Hill Street, or maybe going down Mount Moriah there toward the river, and you see Hubbard Lake there, I mean, is that an awesome view or what? Huh? I mean, it gives me chills. And I have it when I come home from Alpena, the east side of the lake. I come over Scotts Hill there by Anchor Market in that area there, and I can see the lake there, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. Beautiful, beautiful lake. Okay, now moving right along here.
Were you born here?
I was born in Harrisville by a midwife in Harrisville, and raised in Spruce for the first 6 years of my life. When I was 7, we moved to Hubbard Lake. So, yep. Everybody asks me if I grew up around here. I tell them no. I was raised here, but I never grew up. My daughter says I'm an 8-year-old trapped in a man's body. So, okay, this is a map here, an early map from 1925. I just have a pointer on this thing here. Let's see. There we go. From 1925. And it shows some of the early owners around here. Gilchrist was one of the, from the lumbering days. He did a lot of lumbering around here. You know, that's where the hardwoods is now. They bought the property from Gilchrist. We'll talk about that in a little while. And but one of the reasons I put this on here, that's a town. That's what that indicates. That hatch mark area is a town. Oak Grove was a town, according to the map here in 1925. But there's just nothing there now. But back in 1925, it was a subdivision, and I think it was more a somebody, when they put it on the map, I think it was a little more hope involved than reality. I don't think it was really much of a town, but that's what they were envisioning with their subdivision. So, Mr. Swarthout, I think, is the one that started that. Okay. Dan, I'm looking for Dan. We're going to skip down here to...
His name Thompson, is that you?
Thompson, where is it?
Right next to the town, just south.
Oh, down...
Right
there, oh, yeah. That would be Alf Thompson. He's not related to me, but he was... I had the Thompson store in Hubbard Lake Village. This is where Hubbard Lake Corners is right now, right there. And a mile north of there is Hubbard Lake Village. That's where Al Thompson has a store. We'll see a picture of that in a little bit here. Okay. All right. Here's the, no, I'm missing something here. No, this is the, oh, I got the map. Okay, gotcha. I want to just read a couple things out of a timeline here and some dates of interest. just kind of hit the high points. In each book, each one of my books, I put a timeline in there so that people can look and see some of the interesting events, the major events that took place right here. This is the timeline in volume 2. This is a beautiful picture here on Sucker Creek Road by the golf course in the wintertime here. Just wanted to read a couple of things out of the timeline. It starts in 1890 and goes to the 1950s here. Os Bacchus, we're going to talk about him. He came to the south end of the lake here around in the 1890s. He's the one that named Mount Moriah. He had a resort here at the south end. Okay, in 1903, there were 9 automobiles registered to Alpena residents. 1903, 9 automobiles. I think, let me see, the Model T came out in 1908. I believe Henry Ford produced those. The speed limit in Alpena at that time was 6 miles per hour. By 1905, 2 years later, there were 35 cars in Alpena.
Pretty good for a small town.
Yeah.
In those years.
In 1907, I'm sorry, I was off by 1 year, Henry Ford mass-produced the Model T. He did not invent the automobile, but he was one of the early pioneers of the, what's the word I want for a production line there, whatever, conveyor belt. Assembly line, thank you. So he was the one who thought to set up an assembly line for producing cars. And that's one of the things that opened up Hubbard Lake to people from down below. Yes. And so that's why I put in here one of my chapters entitled Henry Ford Transforms Hubbard Lake. Because Hubbard Lake was pretty much undiscovered. It still is, sort of. You know, it's not like Traverse City and all that.
We're lucky.
We're glad about that.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and we don't have the traffic or any of that, the commercialization. So that's one of the beauties of Hubbard Lake. And so Henry Ford opened it up, and new vehicles meant new roads, and the new roads brought people here to our beautiful lake. By 1908, there were a few barely passable tote roads that are the only access to Hubbard Lake. The first road to Hubbard Lake was Gilchrist. I don't know if I have that. I don't think I probably had it in the first book, but Gilchrist Tote Road went. That was the first road from Alpena to Hubbard Lake. And it went from the north end here and kind of went up through Alpena County and up toward Alpena, probably maybe hooked up with Worth Road somehow. And so 1908, there were barely passable roads. We're talking about sand ruts, mud holes, corduroy. Anybody know what corduroy roads are? You know what it is? What is it? What do you think?
They're real rough. They're made of what?
Cedar posts is what they do. They lay them down in the mud or they drive over them. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Nasty, you know, so. Okay.
Sidewalks too, made like that.
From Alpena to, by 1917, from Alpena to Bay City was a 7 or 8 hour drive in a car.
Wow.
7 or 8 hours to go from Alpena to Bay City in 1917. By 1918, there were 300 people in Hubbard Lake Village, just north of the lake. 300 people. That's way more than there are now, okay? That was probably some lumbering going on at that time, lots of farming. And, okay. And let's see what we got here for dates of interest. I have another, I'm just scratching the surface, okay, of what's going on here, see if there's anything that, here's a gentleman, 1908, the supervisor, he was apparently a township supervisor, John Patty, walked 30 miles to a meeting in Harrisville. That's what he did, because he didn't have a horse, so he walked 30 miles. I wonder if he was late for the meeting. I don't know.
Yeah. I hope they didn't cancel it.
Okay, the main arteries to Hubbard Lake, as it started to open up, I'm not going to see it on this map. Maybe I can go to I'll just show you a map in the book here. Since we're connecting the crowd here. All right, this is a map of the early map of the lake here. And the main arteries, there were 3 main ways to get to Hubbard Lake. And that was Alpena by Worth Road and Hubbard Lake Road here. Or Spruce through Spruce Road here.
It was 23.
Yeah, or Lincoln over here. this way to the lake. So those are the three main avenues to Hubbard Lake.
We used to come in through Spruce, but we were turning that Hubbard Lake.
Okay, oh,
And
oh, yeah,
It was really rough road, it was just gravel.
right.
It seemed like it took forever to get to the lake.
You have been here for a while, haven't you? Yes, all right.
when we were kids.
Okay, well, that's what this is about, is reliving some memories, you know, bringing back fond memories and all of that. Okay, let's look at page 47, which is a map here. 47. Is that what I've already got up there? Yes, it is. 49, let's go to 49. Okay, this is Charles Madison. He was, this is Charles right here, and his friend Harry Hare right there. And that's over at the north end of the lake. He started the Madison subdivision at the north end of the lake. Bear Springs Road, right there by the Hubbard Lake Tavern, goes south along the lake shore there, Bear Springs Road. And this is Madison Shore. That's what it looked like over there. That would be North Bay. This would be the east side of the North Bay. That's the west side. You can have a nice view of the sunset from there. All right. What our next one is here. Jennison Grove, which is along the west side of, well, it'll be the east side of North Bay, along there, Jennison Grove, big park there. This is Charles Jennison right there, the guy with the white sleeves right here. And he's the one, he came in the 1890s, came into that area. I just wanted to read a little bit here. This is about Charles Jennison. The Alpena Weekly Argus, that's what the Alpena News used to be called back in the late 1800s, the Argus. The Alpena Weekly Argus reports on October 7th, hey, that's today, 1885, the steamer Metropolis brought 2 hunting parties to town last Friday morning. I believe that Metropolis may have sunk at some point in time. That rings a bell with me. But anyway, the steamer Metropolis brought 2 hunting parties to town last Friday morning. Jennison and the party from Bay City, this would be Charles Jennison here, and his friends, have gone to hunt deer in the Hubbard Lake region. This is 1885, remember now. They have 2 hounds and a partridge dog, skiff, camping outfit, and several guns. So in those days, they used dogs to hunt deer.
Wow.
There were no laws against that. And in volume 4, you're going to read about that, Carol, in your book here. They shot everything. They shot, you know, if they saw 6 or 8 deer, they shot them all. You know, they didn't care. They shot them at night if they had lanterns, you know, or whatever. Shot them year-round, bucks, does, fawn, didn't matter. They shot them all. And they sold them. They were market hunters, and they sold them. When the railroads came in, they started shipping venison to New York and Chicago, and they took the deer from 1880. We had about 1 million whitetails in Michigan. By 1914, there were about 45,000 left. Wiped them out.
Wow.
So that's what happened there. So old Charles was going out hunting. There must
Sir.
be-
Mike,
Yep.
Do you know anything about the railroad running through Hubbard Lake on the west side? Those,
The road running along there?
a railroad.
Oh, railroad, yes. I have mapped in, if you look in volume 1, right here.
That one?
Yep. You'll find a map of railroads in there if you look hard enough in the lumbering section. I won't just where probably go this way, and then you'll see a map.
The rumor that there was a whole train that went down in the lake, right?
That is a rumor. There's 2 rumors that I hear all the time about Hubbard Lake. A train went down, and that Hubbard Lake was 2 lakes.
Oh.
Okay, but I don't believe that because the bottom is just one big bowl. There'd have to be a ridge in the middle, and those 2 lakes. But I wrote about that in volume 1 also. You need to go home and read your books, Carol.
I know.
But that's it, in short, and to summarize there.
Actually, when they came on, I was really sick, and I have to go back and tell them, well, and I can sit down
All
and read
right.
them. I can sit down and read them right here in the Hubbard Lake area.
You're going to be fired up now when you go home, see?
I know, I am.
But they, anyway, in the book here I wrote about, because I keep hearing about that all the time from getting off track here, but, oh well, what else is new?
Now tell me, were the Indians as big a group as we thought they were here?
There were Chippewas around here, probably,
Mike, repeat the question, Mike.
okay, were there many Indians around here? Yes, there were. Maybe it depends on the time of year they migrated, if they were coming to fish the lake or hunt ducks or something, or pick mushrooms, you know, they'd come here.
I
But
keep
then,
thinking my sister keeps thinking there was a great big hill and that they had their meetings up there, great
they
big
did,
meetings.
top of Mount Moriah. They had a statue there, a stone monument there, which I wish I could find that. I could find what I'm looking for in here too. But I wish I could find that. Somebody says that it went to the Smithsonian Institute, maybe, you know, but there's a description of all that in this book, in the early part of the Chippewas. But there were Chippewas around here, quite a few. Okay, this is a steam engine here with skis and tracks, like Caterpillar tracks on it, okay? And that's the hauling logs, and they probably hauled them across Hubbard Lake, and maybe one of those went down. I've heard about it so many times, I suspect they did. And I have an account here of a young girl who was working at a stopping house over at the north end of the lake there on Bear Springs Road. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was here. Come on, Mike, how can you remember? Anyway, she said she saw a steam engine out on the lake pulling logs across the lake, so I know that happened here.
Well, actually, no.
Okay, where are we at here? Okay, so we got Charles. I'm reading to you a little bit about Charles. Charles Jennison had arrived at Hubbard Lake. He had a lumber and hardware business in Bay City and owned the timber rights to a fair-sized parcel south and west of Hickey Hill. Hickey Hill kind of sits where Churchill Point comes out into the lake. Okay. All right. This is Churchill Point right here. This East Bay's over here. Hickey Hill's up there. And so this is Jennison Grove. This is where he had some of his property there. And he did some lumbering. Okay. Jennison Grove Club Incorporated in 1913. And Harry Schubert was also involved in that. I like what his son, Harry Schubert's son, wrote about Hubbard Lake here. So it registers with me. William is his name. For me, Hubbard Lake was a magical place. It's a magical place.
It is.
Yes. A place for adventure, for meeting new friends, renewing old friendships, exploring a deserted beach, or walking into unknown forests. All right, so it describes his cabin here. All right, moving right along here. There's the Jennison Grove beach. That's what the Hubbard Lake Beach looked like in the old days. That's a black and white picture that they touched up with color. That's the way they did it, and they didn't have color cameras, so that's how they did it. So that's what we got there. That's kind of cool. All right, here's the Gillard family who lived in Jennison Grove. Lucille still lives there, right there. That's
Lou.
Lucille.
I met Lou.
You know Lou? Yep.
I just met Lou at the Presbyterian Church.
There you go.
That's Lou?
Yeah, she's a sweet lady.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
good.
She's 91 years old.
Yeah,
Three
she's,
kids.
yeah, that's her. Oh yeah, I met her daughters
Yep.
and her son.
Yep.
And that's her husband, and he passed
Yep.
away.
Don.
Oh, yeah.
Don. She was postmaster in Michigan.
Yeah.
He's a real piece of work.
And he helped build the church too, I
Talk
think.
more about him later. Yep. Yep, for sure.
That's so cool.
So they lived in Jennison Grove.
I might see her tomorrow. I'll tell her.
There you go. Tell her she's famous. Okay, moving down here to Hubbard, to the south end of Hubbard Lake. This is, I believe, Hill Street, which is right over here, goes right down to the lake right there. You can see the lake from there. And so that's what it looked like, 100 and some years ago right there, Hill Street. And this is our buddy, Ost Backus, okay? Both pictures of him. And he was a serious piece of work, okay? He had this Mount Moriah, named Mount Moriah, M-A-R-I-A, spelled it wrong, it sounds like Maria. He left the H off at the end of it. It comes from the Bible. That's where Abraham took his son Isaac up to Mount Moriah. It was M-O-R-I-A-H. Ross didn't have a Bible, I guess he didn't.
Did he need for it to be named after the Bible, Mariah?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, where else would he get the name?
But we don't put the H on it anymore when we
I
write our
I
addresses.
like to though.
Yeah, well, that's why my dad put the H on Mount Moriah Realty. And
Yeah, I
they
saw
wanted to
that.
put it, they tried to get them to put it on Mount Moriah Road going around the lake there,
Right,
but
I
that
was-
never, they just left
I
it, so.
think they should too.
Yeah, well, I think you should start a petition, okay? Yeah. All right, here we go. So this is all about good old Ost at the south end here. So let's see what we got here. Pages 22 and 23. Let's go back to that. 22 and learn a little bit about Ost Bacchus. Ost Bacchus was born February 25th, 1869 in Port Rowan, Canada. He lived in Detroit where his doctor diagnosed him with consumption, apparently tuberculosis, is what I think what they called consumption in those days. So his doctor suggested he take it easy. What better place than Hubbard Lake? Yeah, all right. So Ost was attracted to this area by the timber boom. Remember, and this was in the late 1890s in that time. And that was timber cutting started around here about 1870. And this was all huge white pine trees, 6 feet in diameter and 200 feet tall. And they just wiped them out, floated them across the lake and down the river to Alpena. That's all in volume 1, the whole account there. Okay. Ost had been told by his doctor, this is another account, that he had consumption and that his days were limited. After selling his home in Detroit, he brought a team of horses and a wagon loaded with his belongings and all the beer the wagon could hold and went north. At Lincoln, Michigan, he found a logging road to Hubbard Lake, where he sold the team and wagon and built a cabin at Hubbard Lake. He regained his health, and as tourists came, he erected more cabins. He had 3 main cabins, 2 of which are still standing down here. He had Bacchus Resort and the Bullpen and Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin was on the water that burned down in the 30s. We'll see pictures in a moment. And Bacchus Resort and the Bullpen are still there. Just down Hill Street to the left. They're not on the water, they're just back off the water. Okay. Can you imagine the look on Ost's face as he popped over the top of the big hill and gazed at magnificent Hubbard Lake? He must have smiled. And how about his first look at the broad, inviting, pristine sandy beach at the south end? Hubbard Lake was all wilderness then. You know, and there's one other fellow, I'm sure this is how Ost felt also. What's this guy's name now? Weird. John Weird. He's the guy that originally built the South Shore Inn down here. And he built it, I remember that when they tore some of it apart, it was built out of old signs, metal signs. They just used those, and the insulation was sawdust. Probably a few snakes in there, I'm guessing.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, John Weir was one of the early settlers after Ost Bacchus by some time. He said he built that tavern down there and he had cottages there and a resort and everything. He said, every nickel that comes down that hill, he said, I'm going to get. You know, every tourist that comes, like, he's going to squeeze some money out of him. I'm sure Ost felt the same way. He built his resort there. And big promoter of Hubbard Lake. People came from all over the country to Bacchus Resort at the south end.
Is the sandy beach still there?
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful sandy beach. Yep, still there. It's
But
just
not public, it's
full of
docks.
boat hoists and docks.
Yeah, okay.
We have down here at the south end, we have what we call dock wars. Now, matter of fact, there's a couple of lawsuits going on around the lake. One of them right here, I know that. So,
As far as who gets to put their dock where?
yeah.
You were asking about that.
We
You
just
had an
drove, I've
instinct
never
about
seen it
that.
with all the docks up, and we just drove by there the other day, and I
I wonder how they
thought,
figure
how
out.
do they figure out where everyone's docking? It was like,
It's
it's
a
amazing
grant.
docks.
With a little bloodletting on occasion, I'm sure, yeah. Well, yeah, it's nasty, so. Anyway, Ost named the big hill Mount Moriah, apparently after Mount Moriah in the Bible, and he liked the lake so well, he claimed it as his own. Okay. He was there in 1895. Now here's half of the picture, and here's the other half of the picture. I'll show you in the book here. But
What's his
That's-
name again?
Ost Bacchus, Austin Bacchus.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're gonna
Bacchus,
call it Bacchus Lake?
B-A-C-K-U-S. There's Bacchus
Bacchus.
subdivision, Bacchus Beach subdivision down there. first edition of Bacchus Beach, second edition, third edition. He subdivided, he owned a lot of it. And this is the two parts of the lake here. That's all one picture in the book, I'll show you. But what I love is the caption on the bottom of this picture, which says, Hubbard Lake, Austin Bacchus, what's it say in parentheses then?
His lake.
His lake. His lake. It's all 7 miles long and 3 miles wide. He didn't see those people over at the north end over there that were here 25 years before him. Okay, his lake. So he was a little bit of an interesting fellow, yes. Oh, so all right, let's see what we got here about old Austin. This is him. Let's use the pointer, right? There he is right there. That's Austin. They're playing cards probably in the bullpen. Somebody told me that they had poker games in this bullpen place, and in later years they tore the boards up in the floor and found all sorts of silver and gold coins that had fallen down the cracks.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a metal detector.
One of those.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. 22. Okay, let's keep moving here and see what we got. There's Uncle Tom's cabin. It was right on the water. As I said, burned down in the 30s. This is the inside of Uncle Tom's cabin there. Let's see, we got on page 25. Uncle Tom's cabin is not as I would have imagined at all. The building was around 30 feet long by 30 feet wide. The first floor was an open-sided dance floor screened in on all sides. So I don't know, there must be something what's going on here, down there, and I think it goes around the corner there. It was made from full-size logs standing on end. Well, that's not what I'm seeing here, but I think maybe on the other side some of them were standing on end. But let's see if this other one shows anything standing on end. Maybe vertical logs on this wall over here. I don't know, maybe even some horizontal. So, okay. With us, right down here, right down by the lake. Here. Standing on end with a stairway on the inside wall to the upstairs. Here's the stairway. Here were 6 rooms and a hallway down the center. That's upstairs. Now I ask you, does this sound like a cabin to you? And I got a note here. Several pictures labeled Uncle Tom's cabin do not correspond to the above description. Perhaps the original was modified or replaced over the years. Uncle Tom's cabin was located at the lake's edge in front of where Bacchus Lodge now stands. And, okay. Let's move along here then. Let's see what we got next. Here's a boat that Os Bacchus built himself, a canopy launch there. And man of many talents, apparently. Here's the dock at the south end of the lake. What it looked like there was some of the rowboats there. That was in front of Uncle Tom's cabin.
Yeah, was that the first shore that was built up? South End?
Well, there were people at the north end, like I said, 25 years earlier, so I'm sure there were some things going on over there. But
I don't know why somebody told me that was the South End was the first.
Well,
They have the most beautiful views I've ever
right,
read.
and they had a beautiful beach there too, you
Yeah.
know. So he was one of the early resorts, you know, around the lake. You know, I'm sure there were some things going on at the north end there also, but probably not to the same, not as elaborate as this maybe, so or well known. Okay, here's Os and his wife Martha. Right there's Martha. I'm going to read some about Martha here. Let's see.
One of Martha's.
Martha Bacchus. Martha was a hard worker, according to Vi. This was her grandniece. Vi used to live over by Smokey's Bar there in that area. Martha made soft soap out of lye, ashes, and fat, which she dipped out to wash dishes. She got up at 4 a.m. to do wash or to create breakfast fit for a king: pancakes, bacon and eggs, fried potatoes, grapefruit, oranges, and coffee. Lunch was usually soup accompanied by a homemade cake. Later she prepared a supper of fried fish and perhaps venison or pork, potatoes, and homemade pie. I'm making my mouth water here.
I know.
Yeah.
A lot of cooking.
Her Sunday specialties were chicken and homemade ice cream. Os would ring the bell a half hour before meals and again at mealtime. And when he yelled, "Suey," you'd better be there. Okay, so there we go. That's a little bit of what was going on at Bacchus Resort.
Quite a woman.
Yep. She was the backbone of the resort operation, I have no doubt. He just stood around and told stories here, which we're going to read right here, page 32. It was Os's favorite tall tale that, with the help of the great Paul Bunyan, Os himself and Louis de Rogy scooped up the soil from the lake bed with their bare hands and piled it high to form Mount Moriah. Paul Bunyan had a daughter that weighed 2,200 pounds. She having inherited her father's gargantuan physique. The daughter, whose name escaped me, had been done dirt by her beau. She wept copiously. She had lost her handkerchief, the size of all the bed sheets in a large laundry. Her tears streamed down the side of Mount Moriah, flowed into the excavation where the mud and sand had been taken to build the mountain. Thus, in mournful numbers, Hubbard Lake was filled. The salt of the tears must have been evaporated by now, because the lake, one of the most beautiful in Michigan, is fine for swimming, drinking, and freshwater fishing. So that's the kind of story that Paul Bunyan, that Os Bacchus would tell of Paul Bunyan's daughter, Hubbard Lake. He was a piece of work, I'm telling you. But people, he entertained people. They came for the lake and for the fishing and the hunting, and they came for old Os. They knew it wasn't going to be boring. Here he is with a fake gun that his friends made for him.
Going out hunting.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, he was something else. So here's a couple of kids with a big trout. That's a nice trout that came from who knows where to Bacchus Resort. And Helen Fisher, who lives at the south end, right here, was kind enough to give me the register from his resort, Bacchus Resort. So I get to go through that and look at all the entries in there.
Wow.
And I put some of them in the book, the ones that I thought were interesting. Let me see if I can just pick a couple out here quickly that you might like to read. Page 36, here we go. These are people who stayed at Bacchus Resort. July 10th, 1910. We leave today. There is but one man that can beat Le Kaiser, whoever that is, and that is the man who lives right here. He can tell a lie and never smile. I don't know, maybe Le Kaiser's from Germany or something, sounds like. But Os Bacchus can tell a lie and never smile, and he is telling them all the while. This is from Moore and Geyser and Scram. November 3rd, 1910. He said that if we came up, he would make everything pleasant. He lied about fish, he lied about pheasant. Now, friends, you can take from this that the biggest of liars is Os Bacchus. That's from the Weld Day. Let's see, November 1910 to Austin Bacchus. May your life be ever blessed with best of health and happiness. May Hubbard Lake be full of fish to give you plenty on your dish. May Sucker Creek have plenty of fur he trapped. West Branch also have some there. May plenty of otter visit your traps, and all the banks be full of rats, muskrats we're talking about.
Yeah.
Of all you do, don't tell a lie, because old Lever may happen by. I don't know, is that the devil? I don't know who old Lever is, but everybody knows Dan is best. Or maybe it's Dan Lever, I don't know. So don't put on your lying vest. Of all the hosts we have met, there's none as genial as old Bacchus yet. And if we prosper another year, you can bet old Bacchus will be here. R.V. Parks from Fremont, Ohio. So those are some of the, we used to have some friends like that came up every year for deer hunting, and the guy, Crazy Al, came from Cincinnati. And you just look forward to the guy because it's going to be so much fun. So much fun. He's going to tell stories. Big spender, man. He'd take everybody out to South Shore and spend, hundreds and hundreds of dollars showing off his wealth, So I'd like to see that kind of guy coming. That's kind of like Os Bacchus was, Definitely entertaining. Not boring. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Here's the stone that's still at the top of Mount Moriah commemorating Osbacus. Somebody stole the plaque off it here, which has been done several times during the year. So it's brass. I don't know, maybe they tried to sell the brass or something, but anyway, what it says here, in memory of Osbacus, maybe I should read it out of the book here. Hubbard Lake pioneer. He loved nature and his fellow man. Okay, and so these are some of the local, I think, I'm not sure, this guy might be a judge. I'm trying to think what his name was here. This is Clarence Travis, who had a place, he had a real estate business down there, and he actually lived in Bacchus Resort for many years, he and his wife Shirley. He was on the board of directors of Mount Moriah. This is C.W. Scott, who started Scott Park over on the east side of Hubbard Lake. And this is Carl Smith, who's the fire chief, still the fire chief right now. So he's a lot younger then. I'm trying to think that Dilkey or something like that was a judge's name. One of these guys, maybe this guy or that guy.
So that stone has been up there since 1951?
Yep. Yeah, it's been moving around a little bit. I mean, when my parents had Mount Moriah, they built the top of that hill up to make it steeper there and put the chairlift in, but they put the stone back up there. So, okay. Now where are we at? Here's the Model T, 1908. There we got it. And so that's what changed Hubbard Lake, was Henry Ford and the Model T, and it brought a lot of people north to Hubbard Lake. This is right here in this page in the book. And this is Frank Larson and his family that we have on the screen right there. So we'll read a little bit about Frank. He was an early landowner and developer around the lake here. And let's see what we got. At the age of 24, Frank Larson took an early interest in developing the lake. He was mainly on the north end and the west side, but it's a little bit on the east side here too. I can think of no one who was more active in land transactions and building around the lake. My mom, Iva Cornelius, recalls Frank owned a sizable stretch of lake frontage from Hardwood Point north on the west side of the lake. Iva says her dad, Milo Thompson, right here, could have bought his lake frontage, Frank Larson's lake frontage, for $4 a foot. My grandfather. Milo made some good investments, but that wasn't one of them. During the Depression, Grandpa Milo went to, just before the Depression in 1929, he went to Alpena to his bank and he said, I don't like to feel it the way things are going here economically. I want to take all my money out. And so his banker talked him out of it. And he came home, he got about halfway home, and he said, I'm going back to town to get my money. He got his money. The next day, after my Grandpa Milo had his money in hand, was the national banking holiday. And all the banks were locked up tight. Nobody could get any of their money, except my grandpa. He bought thousands of acres of land west of Hubbard Lake and over by US 23 by Chippewa Point, south of Chippewa Point, for 25 cents an acre.
Wow.
So, should have bought some of that lake frontage for $4 a foot. He made some good investment. According to Frank's daughter, Evelyn, Violet, and Arlene, in the 1920s, roads to access the west side of the lake were different than today. From Hubert Road and Hubbard Lake Road, that's Coleman's Corner, Hubbard Lake Road runs north to the county line. That's Hubert Road on the county line. That's called Coleman's Corner there. Coleman's own property along there. By the Calvin School, as you run Hubbard Lake Road, runs north. And Hubert Road runs east and west. From Hubbard Road and Hubbard Lake Road, you had to angle northwest instead of coming right straight west on a one-lane trail through the woods to Osborne Road, which now runs north and south, then north to Scott Road over the Thunder Bay River Bridge, that's by Hubbard Lake Village, by the post office there, to Hawkins Road, and then to that point the road ended and you had to follow a one-lane trail to the lake. Let me see if I can find a map here. Okay, where are we going to go to find a map? Well, let's go back to the, so I find the map here. It's not gonna have roads on it, but we'll use the map anyhow. There we go. That's not gonna tell us very much. But anyway, what we're talking about here is coming up, this is where the Caledonia School is, right there. And there was a Pine Grove School before that. Okay, that's Hubbard Lake Road, going here, going there, and this is Hubbard Road along the county line. So you come up here to Hubbard Road at Coleman's Corners, that's Coleman's Corners right there. And then Ribble, I see the name there. This is Ribble's Hill here. There's a big hill up there. You couldn't get up there with horses or Model T or anything. And so you had to come down here a little ways, and this went over to Osborne Road, which now runs north and south there. Big Osborne Road up here, Scott Road over to Hubbard Lake Village, and then you cross the river there, and then there was apparently some kind of little trail going down here to the west side of the lake. So that's what you had in the good old days. Okay. Couldn't get up the river here. Some of those Model Ts had the way they had their gas tanks situated. You couldn't get up the hill, all the gas would run out you, so you had to back up the hill to get up the hill sometimes, yeah. Interesting days, yes. So let's see what else we got here for Frank on the next page here. In approximately 1924, Frank Larson hired men and teams of horses from Black River to construct a road along the west side of the lake, from Alpena Township line to the West Shore Drive. In the Hardwood Point subdivision, lake lots were 50 feet wide by 200 feet deep and sold for $200. Back lots for $50 each. He also built the Sunnyside Inn. Now that was down by, it's still standing there, Lanny Caverly owns it now, by Smoky's Bach, along in there. You go down the DNR boat launch to the lake, just to the south there. There's a big old building there, that's Sunnyside Inn that Frank Larson built. Incidentally, when he built, I saw a lot of his stuff that he built. Everything I saw that he ever built, he built out of used lumber. He tore down the Hubbard Lake School at the north end of the lake and saved that lumber. And then he started building a motel over at the north end of the lake. He had an airstrip over there, which was used a little bit, I guess. He never finished the motel, but it was all out of used lumber. You know, he was building this out of. And then he built another.
Is the Sunnyside Inn still standing there?
Yep, it is. It is. Well, nobody's living there. Lanny Caverly built a place down on the water from it, a new place. So I guess the overflow, and he has guests. They stay there sometime. But he also built this. All the way back here, where we were. Right there, East Bay Inn. Now, when you go to Smoky's Bar and you go down to the DNR boat launch, on the right there, because I used to go down there all the time, fishing and duck hunting. I go down there and dump my canoe in there and paddle down to the creek or out in East Bay. That building was there falling down when I was young, the East Bay Inn. And Frank Larson built this for his sister's wedding.
Wow.
Built that to have the big party in for his sister's wedding years ago. So, okay.
But that's not there.
Nope. Nope. That one is long gone.
So was it used for a resort also?
Yeah, it was afterwards. I'm sure it was. Yep, East Bay Inn. You know. And Frank's daughter Vi told me, and I think they must have been over in this area here, either here at the Sunnyside Inn, which would just be south of that a little bit, that there were a group of men that came to visit there, just kind of passing through, and their mother ended up fixing them lunch. Anyhow, several men. Some of them were Anderson from the Spruce area, and some of them I think were from outside of the area. And they weren't quite sure what they were doing. And so they came, and the mother fixed them lunch. It tells in the book what she fixed, what kind of sandwiches. And Vi watched this, and then when they were sitting there in the evening, they looked up on Hickey Hill, and they were burning a cross up on Hickey Hill.
KKK?
Yeah. At Hubbard Lake. Yep.
Wow.
So anyway, that's one story. There's interesting stories. Okay, let's moving right along. Here's the big city of Spruce, where Milo and Ruth were here in 1910. This is Teeple's store. When I was a kid, that was Wakeman's store. Hopefully we'll, if I move along here at all, we'll see some pictures of Wakeman's store later on. This is my Grandpa Milo's blacksmith shop right here, like Milo over here, his wife Ruth. Blacksmith shop. This is his farm implement dealership. This is Spruce Hardware, which my grandfather built and ran for many years, and my parents ran it in later years. This is Gillard's store right over here, Lucille Gillard. Her father-in-law and mother-in-law ran that over there. Ernie Gillard and what was her name? His wife. They lived right here in this house, right alongside the hardware. So we lived there. They lived there. I'm trying to remember what her name is, but I can tell you what we called her when I was a little 6-year-old boy. If you got in her yard, you were getting yelled at. So we called her Toad. Okay, I was Toad. That's all I ever knew her by. I do. Starts with V. Her real name.
Toad, T-O-A-D?
Yeah, Toad, like hopping along. You know. So that's the big city of Spruce right there, back in the.
What was the
80s.
Gillard store? Was it grocery?
It was groceries competing with the store right here, Teeple's, which was later Wakeman's when I was a kid. And they also had the post office there, okay?
Didn't they have more than one place that sold cars too?
No, didn't really sell cars. My grandfather was, Milo was a real innovator. He was at the cutting edge of anything. Like when power came in, like about the 1930s, he was the first one to have a display of refrigerators, electric refrigerators and ranges and all that. He did not sell cars, he sold farm implements here, but he had parts for Model Ts. Okay, so but he didn't get into he probably thought about it, but for some reason he didn't get into that. So that was the big city of Spruce. Here's the first gas pump in Spruce. At one time, there were 7 gas stations in Spruce. Have you been through Spruce?
Oh,
That's what they were talking about.
Yep.
I was thinking about gas stations.
Yep,
7
because
gas stations.
and I don't have a map to show you right on here, right on handy, but I'll just kind of run it by you. The main artery from Detroit to Alpena was M10, and M10 ran up F41 by Los Lake Woods Golf Course, and then ran across Swede Road and Gillard Road and right through Spruce Road, and then Spruce Road North, which runs Alpena. That was M10. And when they put US 23 in, they wiped out Spruce and the 7 gas stations, because everybody went to Alpena that way, So, but it was still a main gateway to Hubbard Lake. It is a ghost town now. It just is. Okay, let's look at a little bit of the. Here's a Spruce band. Probably didn't know there was a Spruce band, did you? Well, now you know. Okay, here's a couple of things out of Spruce history here. Let me see. We're going to take a break here in a little bit, for a little while, but I'll just kind of read a few of these things here and see what I got. Here's a couple of entries from the Spruce, from the Caledonia Township minutes. I have got access to those. Read you a couple of entries here. Okay, let's see here. December 8, 1894. Okay, moved by John McQuarrie and supported by Eric Larson that Joseph Lalone be allowed $4 for his sheep killed by dogs, according to the complaint set before this board by Hector McKinnon, Justice of Peace, dated October 11. So they gave him $4 for his sheep that were killed here. December 3rd, 1896. A small yearling horned black bull, white on the belly between the front legs, end of tail white, has strayed into my enclosure about the 23rd of November, 1896, Eugene Oliver. So he went to the town board, told me he had a stray bull someplace, he didn't know where. 1896, moved by James Shell, supported by John McKinnon, that former motions regarding the restraining of horses, sheep, and swine from running at large on the public highways be repealed. Excuse me, and that cattle and horses be allowed to run at large on the highways, excepting entire animals and others proving breachy, and that sheep and swine be restrained from running at large in like manner. Oh my gosh, so they had to have laws and rules about all these things, animals running down the road, crazy things here. Okay, moved by R. Olson, supported by W.D. Brown to pay Fritz Larson $1.75 for shoveling snow and clay from culverts. Carried, down board. And my favorite down here, these are the guys, we would all elect these board members right now, if we could get them. Please, give us more of this. October 8th, 1935, moved by Alf Erstad and seconded by C.B. Patterson, that as we have sufficient funds in the contingent fund due to the large delinquent tax and revenue from beer licenses, there will be no levy for township purposes on the 1935 tax roll. Motion carried. I put that. Imagine that. Somebody find these guys. Let's elect them. Yes, let's. Gee, no taxes that year. Oh my God. How crazy is that, eh? All right, well, we'll do a couple more and then we'll take a break here. All right, let's see what we got. This is Milo and Ruth right here. Milo and Ruth. This is, Ruth came from, whoops, I'm sorry, wrong. Ruth came from Millersburg, Ohio, and married Milo, who was a former lumberjack and blacksmith. This is his son from a previous marriage. His wife died in childbirth, Clifford. This is my mother, Iva. Looks just like my daughter Darby at that age. Iva Cornelius. She had Cornelius Real Estate on the east side of the lake for many years there. And this is my uncle Dick Thompson, who had Thompson Sales and Service in Spruce, and then later on US 23 up north of Squaw Bay there. So, all right. Well, maybe we should take a little break here, and then we'll move on with the Bawley family here. The Bawley family. Bawley Road is over by Viking Marina on the east side of the lake here, and we're going to be talking about this guy right here, Fred Bawley, and his little brother Chris Bawley were the ones that came here to live at Hubbard Lake, early settlers on the east side there. Fred, attracted by the clean, cold waters of Hubbard Lake, just like we have been, probably, brought his wife and two sons, Walter and George. One of them was a school teacher. I think it might have been George.
He started Silver School.
Who was it, George?
I think so, because my brothers had him and they were zero, because he fished all day all night and slept all day in school.
There you go.
Their education.
Yeah, I got some stories about schools, and I have a school section, and I don't know if it's in this book or where you went earlier book. But anyway, the Bawley, Fred, then 36, also brought younger brother Chris. Fred was 36, Chris was 22. And I knew Chris well. Okay, he lived around here as an old man when I was growing up. They came from a Swiss colony in Pickens, West Virginia, where they lived with their parents. In 1901, Fred purchased 200 acres from Andrew Comstock. He was one of the timber barons with a cut in the east side of Hubbard Lake. Timberman for $660. $660 for 200 acres. What's that? $33 an acre. He built the stone and brick house, which now sits on the hill next to Viking Marina. They made the bricks down by the beach. They made the bricks. He bought several parcels along Bawley Road, including 80 acres from Charles Conklin, another timber guy, I believe. I paid $120 for that 80 acres. Pretty good deal. So anyway, I never did know Fred, but I knew Chris, his brother, and he had a house, a couple houses, one right on the lake that's still there, and he had one on Bawley Road that is still there. And when you saw him coming in his 50 Ford pickup, and you were driving from the other direction, you wanted to pull way over because he didn't know where he was going. He couldn't hear anything. He probably had it in second gear, roaring. Oh my gosh, he was a scary driver. But this is, here's Chris. I believe that's Chris right there. And this is a saw. in the old days, they had ice boxes. My dad has me conditioned that I still call the refrigerator on rare occasion the ice box. Okay? There's no ice in it, you know, but that's what he always called it, so I just got to pick that up, I guess. I go to the ice box and get something out of there. But in the old days, they would take, they had hand saws that you'd saw the ice like that, and you'd saw it into big square cubes. It might be this thick, however thick. The ice on Hubbard Lake would get 3 feet thick sometimes, you know, later in the year. But I'm sure they wouldn't want to handle that, but they did earlier in the year. And they load it on wagons and haul it away, and you build an ice house. Backus, I can show you right down here where he had one, the ice house. And then they would fill that up with sawdust there, and amazingly, that ice would, those big blocks of ice all piled together, would keep for months and months and months, a long time, you know, until the next winter, you know. So but this was a modified, one of the Model T engine here, right there, and they had it hooked up to this. You think this is OSHA approved for safety? What do you think? You know, oh my gosh! So they would cut. Oh my goodness! Whoa. So that was old Chris. He was the. We talked about Jennison Grove earlier. He was the caretaker of Jennison Grove subdivision for many years. Real nice guy, fine Christian man, and I was told very strong. One of the strongest men in the county. Okay, here we go. Uncle Chris loaded us into his Model T touring car, and we're off to Hubbard Lake. Chris was quite a driver. Yes, I can attest to that. He would forget to release the gas lever on the steering column. When he turned a sharp corner, everyone held on for dear life while he fooled around with the clutch and brake pedals. Around Hubbard Lake Road, many roads were logging trails. And here's what I was telling you about earlier. On one long, steep hill, his car would run out of gas since Model T engines did not have gas pumps. We would push the car up the hill, or he would let it coast to the bottom of the hill. Once again at ground level, he'd crank the engine, turn the car 180 degrees with the gas tank now being above the engine, and drive it up the hill in reverse. Oh my goodness. Yep. So, I wrote this. I can also attest to Chris's driving skills. As a kid in the 60s, I can recall his old black Ford roaring down the wrong side of the road in second gear. He was in his 80s then and couldn't hear much. I remember seeing his truck in the ditch by Fred's house, owned at the time by Lewis D. Hunt. So, yeah, out in the ditch. Oh well. Okay, moving right along here. This is his sister, Martha Thayer, who has there's a stone house just south of Bally Road. The Sarnans lived there. They used to have Anchor Market on the east side right there. And, okay. All right, this is my great-uncle Ed Bennett. How many of you have eaten at Churchill Point Inn? Anybody at Churchill Point Inn? Yeah? Okay. That was built by this gentleman right here, my Uncle Ed Bennett. Now, does he look like a piece of work or what? Huh? Yeah, I think so. And so, that was built in 1927 by my great-uncle and my grandfather, Joseph Lafayette Cornelius. Okay, they built that. And my dad was raised there. My grandmother, Viva Cornelius, lived down in Jackson. She had 4 kids, and she was working 3 jobs. And it wasn't working. She's all alone. They were divorced. And so she sent her kids, they did that quite frequently back in the day. She sent her kids up here to live with relatives. And her daughter lived with the Giroux family. Was B. Giroux, I think, was her sister-in-law, I think. And then she sent her 3 sons to live at Churchill Point Inn, which was Bennett Tavern, which ironically did not sell liquor at all. It was just for accommodations, sleeping accommodations, and meals. That's all. You know, you stayed there and ate.
I can remember eating there years ago.
Yep. Yep. So it's changed hands. It was Holiday Inn when I was a kid, you know, and now it's Churchill Point Inn. Okay, moving right along here. Lots of stories I could tell, but we don't have time for all that. There's Scott Road, and what it looked like back in the 20s. And here's the road crew who kept that road looking so beautiful. See, they're responsible for the road crew, right there, the road commission, in front of the old church. Here's Hubbard Lake Village. Now this is Thompson's store. That's Alf Thompson was the one that owned that. And that was a Grange Hall on the right, which is where, kind of like the township hall, you know, where all the meetings and everything would take place here.
You know, my mom and dad would go to the Grange Hall and they would make mattresses.
Oh, really, eh?
And we used to call them the lead bench. I don't know what that goes in them, but that,
The lead bench.
yeah, they were that hard.
Oh my goodness. Straw?
Like rock, I don't know. It's
Worse than straw.
But they make them over there.
Okay,
Gosh.
there you go. You do what you gotta do with what you got, you know? That's the way it works. So anyway, this is Alf Thompson, right there. That's him. And he was a well-known businessman there at the north end. This is his dad, Henry Thompson, was a lumberjack, I believe, and then his brothers Ralph and Vernon. Vernon and Alfred were pitchers on the Hubbard Lake baseball team. And Vernon, I think, was a right-hander, and Alf was a much-feared left-hander, okay, on the baseball team. So they were pretty good pitchers there. Let's see what I got here in 94 and 95.
Nice looking men, aren't they?
Yep.
Alf looks like his dad.
Alf Thompson bought his general store from Marshall Rogers and ran it for 25 years. Alf and his brother Vern kept the store open until late in the evening. Their sister Iverna also helped out. They tested cream for farmers and delivered it to the Northern Creamery in Alpena. They also sold ice from their ice house. Alf was injured while serving in World War I in Russia. He spent some time recovering in England before returning home. He became postmaster in 1922, serving for 32 years. The Hubbard Lake Post Office was in his home for a few years, then he moved it to Thompson's store. A bachelor, Alf kept his mother and sister Frances until their deaths. And here's a picture of Alf, Flossie, and Frankie Thompson playing violins there in the book, hamming it up there. You know, here they are in the baseball team down here also. Yep. So he was a mover and a shaker in Hubbard Lake Village there, and it is ironic that he was a leading businessman in Hubbard Lake Village and Spruce. My grandfather Milo Thompson was a leading man there, and they weren't related at all. So that's just the way it happened. So okay. Now I want to read you a little bit about the Depression here. 85, 86, which were very interesting times, to say the least. Let's see here what we got. To the self-supporting farmers at Hubbard Lake, like the Thayers was Martha Thayer, was a Bali. We just showed her picture a minute ago. She was on the east side. She was originally a Bali, her maiden name. Her married name was Thayer. For self-supporting farmers of Hubbard Lake, like the Thayers, life went on during the Depression. Every day had already been a depression, scratching a living from the soil. Okay, what else is different? They raised their own food, lived off the land, and made do with what they had. It could have been worse. At least there were no insurance payments and little taxation, so they didn't have to worry about those things in those days. For city folks, on the other hand, who had no money to buy groceries, no groceries to buy, things got tough. Some migrated from Detroit to Hubbard Lake, hoping to work for room and board. Kupi Dahl remembers strangers. He was a farmer over in the Spruce area. He was actually married to Ruth Thayer. I was talking about the Thayer family. Kupi Dahl remembers strangers at the door just hoping for a free meal. In most cases, I'm betting they got it. A Detroiter who came at that time, Tommy Thompson, lived with the Thayer family for a while. He earned his keep as a professional painter and was well known for his distinctive voice and rhymed as a square dance caller. One Wolf, so he came from the city and lived up here just trying to survive, you know. One Wolf Creek old timer states, "You couldn't buy no job for neither love nor money, but we had the farm." So you raise your own food and that's about all you have. Frank Hansen of Spruce says there were patching patches in the Depression. At age 8 or 10, his mom would send him a mile or so to Spruce with a basket of eggs. He had to cross numerous fences, past several ornery bulls on the way. His churning legs carried him and his fragile cargo to Gillard's store. He got 6 cents a dozen for the eggs. At that time, sugar cost 6 cents a pound. Violet Rasmussen said they had no money. Their garden provided most of their food and they foraged for berries. In order to mail a letter, she recalls digging through all the chairs for 4 cents. So, those were the good old days back during the Depression. And also I write a little bit about the Prohibition days here. People could not buy whiskey. This was 1920 to 1933 was the alcohol prohibition. People could not buy whiskey or beer legally in those days, so many Hubbard Lake farmers made their own booze from potatoes, corn, rye, from June berries, whatever they could ferment. Some mighty strong stuff. They made a little for their own use or a lot to sell. Here's a quote here. "Oh yeah, Dad made whiskey. Everybody made their own whiskey. Some made corn whiskey, barley whiskey, rye whiskey. You really had to be careful if a stranger came that day because some of the people got caught and they were sent to Jackson prison for making rye whiskey. Dad always put in 5 acres of potatoes. They used them potatoes mostly for making that mash, you know, potato whiskey. He did that till he got caught and he got 6 months in jail in Bay City. My dad was just cooking and he had that basement door locked. The federal agents broke the door and went right in. Boy, they smashed everything up." So there you go. That was the good old days of Prohibition. All right. This is Dan Shunk, Senior. This is his garage there. These rocks are all painted white now. It's in Hubbard Lake Village, kind of across from the post office, along in there. And his son, Dan Shunk Jr., is still in there. If you go by there right now and the door's open, he's sitting in there. He's just sitting back in there in the back end by the stove, not on in the summertime, waiting for somebody to come in and talk to him or somebody to ask him if they want a tire change. He still does a little bit of stuff like that, changing tires and things, but he's a sweet old man. Sweet old, really nice to stop in there and say hi to him sometime, He's a lonely guy. Okay, this is Thelma Mckenzie, who was a school teacher. I'll read you a little story here about Thelma. 101. School days. She taught at the Pine Grove School. Anybody know where the Pine Grove School is? Pine Grove School? Anybody know where that is? Where my dad went to school. He was raised, I didn't finish that story, he was raised at Alpena Tavern. My dad, my Uncle Stan, and their older brother, is escaping me right now, but he drowned out in the lake anyway as a youngster. Okay, so Pine Grove School, the Caledonia School used to be. All right, we just talked about it on the map where, okay, let's start at Hubbard Road, the county line road, and Hubbard Lake Road runs in here like this. Okay, a mile south of there, there's a big curve there, and there's an old schoolhouse there. That's Pine Grove School, and then the bigger school, Caledonia School, where I went. My dad went to Pine Grove School, a mile south of the county line there. So this is where she's teaching, Thelma Mckenzie. In the early 30s, when I graduated from Central Teachers College, the jobs were scarce. So scarce that I didn't get one and had to borrow money to go back to school. Near the last of October, the teacher of a one-room school only 3 miles from my home quit. The school board contacted my parents and asked them if I wanted the job. Monday morning, I started teaching. And that was something else. But here, look at this. Laura Shunk, who was married to the guy that has Shunk's Garage there, his wife, Laura. Right here, this guy's wife, Laura, was a school teacher. I remember, she was a substitute teacher when I was a kid going to school.
I had her for a teacher.
Unfortunately, I also remember what we called her.
I'll just take
This is Skunk. But anyway, this is her. This is Laura Shunk right there. And look at her class, because she's trapped in a one-room school with all these folks, these great big towering young boys here, and these snot-nosed kids.
All the
running-
grades from kindergarten to 8.
Oh, and she's got to keep all these kids under control. Oh my God! I can see why the other teacher quit. You know. Here we go. Hey, I did a little substitute teaching myself, and I can tell you their eyes light up when they see sub.
Yeah.
Our last substitute went crying. Oh, look at me. I'm not going to cry.
I won't cry.
Ugh, but what a battle. Oh my gosh. So she started teaching Thelma Mckenzie here. I attended a one-room school, so the situation was nothing new. The waiting was a wood furnace. You got to keep the wood furnace going in the room. 2 outhouses, woodshed, sweeping, washing blackboards, cloakrooms with dinner pails with 1,000 odors, some not so good, but some rather interesting. Now, added to these odors were teachers' riding clothes, for my horse Danny Boy became my transportation. She lived 3 miles from the school. No money to buy a car. This is later on when she had a car. And anyway, there were no snowplows to keep the roads open anyway, so they let me keep hay and the horse in the woodshed when the weather was bad. But Danny spent a lot of his time looking in the school windows waiting for the children to come out. I suspect that a lot of sign language in the raised hand meant pet the horse instead of a biological need only. They went outside to the outhouse or went out to the horse. There were only 22 children enrolled at the Pine Grove School in Alpena County, and nearly all of them rode Danny at one time or another. The school owned a large toboggan, and there was a big hill across the road. I can remember playing in that pit up there when I was going to school. The horse was used to haul the toboggan, loaded with small children on its back up the hill. When it was out of the hill weather, we cut recess time at a longer noon hour on the hill. Out to the hill, I'm sorry. Well, for toboggan. Danny and I spent 2 years at that little school. I imagine there was not another teacher in Michigan that year who received as many calls from auto salesmen as I did. I'm sure all of them heard about the loony teacher who rode on horseback to school. So anyway, that's the story. I did hear another story. I don't know where it's at here, but that somebody one day in school, they let her horse go, so she had to walk all the way home. Oh, it was always one of those someplace in there. Yep. Oh, but you gotta admire those people that did those kind of jobs. Bless their heart. Here's the first dam at Hubbard Lake. The lumberjacks built it. And all they wanted to do in the spring of the year, they wanted lots of water flowing down the Thunder Bay River to Alpena, to float their logs to Alpena. You look in volume 1 and you'll see the log jams in there of what a mess that was. 25 lumber companies had headquarters over by the dam here at the north end. And they'd all dump their logs in there in the spring, and it was a mess. Just craziness. I had to retouch this picture because a couple of these guys were skinny dipping here. I don't know about the lady up on the bridge there, but whatever. And here's 1924 dam. They improved it some, but you can see. Look at this. How this is all. It's all wooded now, but they cut all those logs. It's just barren hillsides here. That's what it was around here. They cut everything. Floated it down the river, Alpena. Okay. All right, this is, what have I got here? This is just some of the early settlers from around the north end. We're going to see a picture in a moment here of Carl Henry right here. He's right there on the west side of the lake. Ray Chamberlain, we're going to talk about him. He's over here on the east side of the lake right there. And here's that Bennett, which is right over here. That's where Bennett Tavern was, right there. This is where the Caledonia School was right there, and the Pine Grove School nearby right there. That's what we're talking about. That's Coleman's Corners up there. And that's Hubbard Lake Village, Hubbard Lake Corners there.
That's the map that shows the route of what's US 23
that's
on
it.
there.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is where, this was originally, actually it was called, I don't think it was This may be incorrect. What I know is M10, but that comes up F41 and across here, Row Road, Swede Road, Gillard Road, through Spruce. That's when there are 7 gas stations. Spruce Road to Alpena, and then they put 23 out here. Look at that. Skip Spruce. So. Okay, who else do we know here? All right, okay, this is Carl Henry. He was an attorney at a place on the west side of the lake. Was one of the first places over in the northwest side of the lake. And now we're going to come down here to the south end. This is Nemo, George Nemo's resort. It's the south end. And that was later on purchased by the Hendricks family. And this is Jesse Hendricks right here, the father. This is his son David, who is apparently enjoying a good joke about the fish, I guess, or something, I don't know. And this is the gas pump that Hendricks there. Somebody's out here fishing, nice fishing out front. And later on I have a picture I'll show you of the roadway, what it looked like the roadway going along the lake there, which is been a lot different than it is now. Okay, let's go, right here it is, right here, not too much later. That's the road that runs right along the lake shore out here right now. It's a lot, there's all blacktop of course, but the lake is like, sorry, the lake is like right out here, you know, it's a lake. So it's not really Hubbard Lake Road, I don't know why. I think that's an error in the caption that somebody put on there. And this is what the shoreline looked like at the south end before the dock war, before all the hoist.
So
And
the beach, does it still get enjoyed? I mean, with all the docks there, I guess the sandy beach is still there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They sit up on the beach in lawn chairs, and the little kids go up and swim in the sandy water. But you can see here, along the shoreline, back then and even now, there's black sediment that washes in the water, and it comes out of the West Branch River down here. And I believe that a lot of it is sawdust from the lumbering days. They had a sawmill up there, and it's still washing up here, you know,
100
80
years later.
Whatever it is, 100 years later, yeah, more than 100 years. So that kind of makes it a little bit interesting. But
Well, Alpena has the same issue. Someplace, the beaches up there sometimes get
Yep.
old sawdust washing up.
Yep. Okay, going back to the east side, I did point out Chamberlain on that map. This is the Chamberlain family, Ray Chamberlain and Lucy and Lou and Ray Jr. and Lucy, which Don Shattuck, she married. Her son Dick Shattuck lives there in the Chamberlain house, and this is Jack, the other brother here. This fellow recently passed, and so did this one. But anyway, I wanted to read something here out of 118. A little bit about the This is written by Ray Jr. right here, about his parents here. In 1924, Mother and Dad decided to build a log cabin. The cabin was designed and built in 1925, still there, just beautiful, just has, so those old log homes, they have such sweet character to them, you know. Electricity and running water were not available at the time, so a two-hole privy was built out back. Water in the kitchen was provided to the sink with a hand pump connected to a well. The cabin was lighted at night with kerosene and gasoline lanterns plus candles. Since my folks were anxious to occupy the cabin, they moved in prior to screens being installed in the windows and doors. Oops. This required mosquito netting to be used over all of the beds during the interim period. That must have been fun. The builder was a native Swede up there named John Larson, who was 80 years of age at the time. He was assisted by his son-in-law, Frank Roberts, and other helpers. The logs were primarily spruce and tamarack, that's interesting, which were floated up from the southwest corner of the lake via tugboat. Probably the pine had all been cut and sold. That's why only spruce and tamarack were left. This was in 1924, yeah, I'm sure they had it all timbered off. John had his own ideas, how the layout should be, and built the cabin accordingly in spite of what my dad wanted. Oh, thank you very much. For example, the living room was designed to be 20 by 30, but when Dad was checking up on the construction progress, he measured the room and found it was 22 by 32 instead of 20 by 30. Upon asking John about the discrepancy, John replied, "Well, they had the logs." John also didn't like the planned location of the stairs to the loft, so he changed it on his own and later convinced Dad that his location was better. A spring had been located running down alongside the cabin from up the hill back on the property in the woods, so it was decided to install a reservoir at the source and pipe the water from there down to the cabin to provide running water. That's what happened all over. There's one right over here. You just go down the hill on the left-hand side. I think Osbackus had a well there. He dug a hole there, and the springs filled that up, and then they put a tank there, and all the people down to the lake would get their just gravity feed, get their water from there. Same thing in Johnson Grove, where Chris Valley was caretaker there. They had a tank there, and he used to have to clean the leaves and stuff on all there and make sure everything was running good. That's the way they did it in those days. That's the way they did it. In the mid-1930s, electricity became available, so Dad installed wiring throughout. Most of the wiring is still in place and working well. Kerosene and gasoline lamps were then made a thing of the past, much to the displeasure of my brother Jack and me, for we loved the ambiance of the old lanterns, even though it was our responsibility to always keep them full of fuel. It's kind of romantic. My wife and I I built 2 log houses, and the gentleman that we're going to come across here soon, Ed Mahalik, taught me how to do it. He was about 80 years old also. And anyway, we lived there for the first 7 years with no electricity. 3 little kids. Fireplace, wood cook range, candles, and a cooler with ice in it. That's the main bugaboo is the refrigeration. You can buy with the light. You get light from the fireplace and the candles. And if you want, you can have kerosene lanterns or even gas lanterns. Eventually we had a gas refrigerator, but that was about it. So. But it was fun. It was no problem at all, really. Once you get used to it, it's not a problem. Okay. I'm going to have to skip some of this down here, but I'm going to read this one. At one time, his mother, Ray's mother, that would be Lou right here, and Glenn, I guess, I don't know who that was, or some relative, lost a 1929 Lockwood outboard motor overboard in 40 feet of water in the bay. And so I can remember my dad telling me about that. His uncle, Ed Bennett, let him take the boat out, he and his brother and my Uncle Stan, let him take the boat out fishing with his brand new outboard motor on. And they dropped it overboard somehow. It came off, loosened as they're driving in deep water, I don't know what it was, 20, 30 feet of water. And so they, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And so they put a treble hook on there, and I don't know if they could see it down there or whatever. They put a treble hook with some weight in there and try and fish it. I mean, what are the chances? It's a shot in the dark, you know. They caught it the first throw, they caught the motor. And they pulled it up, and they're like ready to jump in there. They're so excited. And they got the motor back anyway. Wow, okay. Oh, those kind of crazy things happen. Okay, moving right along. Here's the east side. This is where Smokey's Bar is now. And this is Carl Larson. That's the brother of Frank Larson. We talked about him earlier, who owned much of the land on the west side. My grandpa could have bought for $4 a foot, but he didn't. And he built some of those big buildings there. And this is his brother, Carl Larson. I really liked old Carl. He was an old trapper. Mainly that's what he did. He just trapped. And he was probably 70, 80 years old, and he was still out trapping. And Misery Creek is what I call the creek at the end of East Bay there. But anyway, he built this building there. What year does it say here? 1929. He bought the land, and he built Bayview Tavern, because you probably could see the lake from there. The trees weren't there, so he built that. This is his son Ricky, yep. And this is Carl with a bunch of brook trout he had there. But old Carl, I'd be down duck hunting in the marsh at the end of East Bay. Did a lot of that when I was younger. And you'd be sitting there on a maybe November morning, and it was cold. It was probably like, I don't know, 30 degrees. Might have been snowing when there was ice along the edge. And And the whistlers would still be coming in, black and white ducks, and they have a whole bunch of decoys. They'd come and sit and bang, bang, get some ducks. So old Carl would come wandering down the shoreline with his pole axe. He always had this kind of between an axe and a hatchet that he killed his muskrats with, I guess, or something when he caught them in his traps. He had traps down in the marsh. So he'd come down there, and he'd always have a drop of snot hanging off his nose about that long, And we'd talk a little bit on the shoreline, and the wave go up in there, and he had an old rowboat with a board that he used to row it. Somebody told me he had a 22 back up in there, laying under a log someplace. And I can't imagine how rusty that would have been, but he was just a sweet old guy to start. He loved the marsh up there, so that's what I have right here. Matter of fact, I'm going to read that. So anyway, here we are. He built this place. Carl, he cut 260 cedar posts in one day at the south end. That's with no chainsaw, 260. Probably hauling babies out. He's a hard worker, obviously. Carl loved the marsh, the soothing, simple, uncluttered silence. At sunrise, a single blackbird flying over, cackling, the ripple of a rising bass. In my mind, I can still see old Carl walking down the beach to the creek. Misery Creek Marsh is still yours, Carl. Still yours. Yes, it is. So I sold the tavern here, Bayview Tavern, to Ed Mahalik, the guy that taught me how to build log homes. Okay, I'm going to see his picture shortly here. For $1,500. His wife was a full-blood Indian, I believe. Chum was her name. And Carl was a much feared pitcher on the baseball team because of his spitball. That was legal in those days. He'd load up one side of the ball with. I'm really gross. Before games, Carl had Ed, who was his catcher, buy some slippery elm, whatever that is, at the drugstore for the spitballs, which were legal. So he'd load up to one side with slippery elm, and it made the ball lopsided, so it would really curve. The good old days, Great guy, great guy. Okay, this picture's hanging on the wall right back there. That is the first fire truck right here, the South Shore. I believe that was bought by, come on, I wrote it down here, Mike, Kegris. Clarence Kegris, who had a cottage down to the south end. Very nice man that I knew from, 40 years ago. He's gone now, but I think he bought that, the first fire engine here. All right, here's Lionel and Hazel on their Popeye boat that I think they bought from, Lake St. Clair. It was some kind of lifeboat or something down there, but this thing doesn't look very big there, but it was probably, got other pictures of
What did you call it, Popeye?
That's what they called it. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's Popeye in the cartoons or something like that. But that was probably 25 feet long or something. It was a big boat. And when they put the road, 1969 was when they put the road all the way around the lake that you love so much. Yes, all right. And when they put that 14-foot tube down there, they had to get permission from the Putvins, because that's a navigable stream, the West Branch River there, West Branch of the Thunder Bay River. And they weren't going to be able to get their boat through there with that tube in there, so they had to get their permission. Otherwise they couldn't they'd have to put a bridge there or something, And they gave permission, they said, okay. So they couldn't go up the river anymore with their
Kind of pretty boat.
Yeah, they were nice, very nice people, very nice people. Okay, here's, anybody remember Mort Neff from Michigan Outdoors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thursday night, 7 o'clock, it's time for Michigan Outdoors.
I love that show.
Yeah, it was great. My dad was on that show, and you'll see in this book here with his black bear, 600-pound black bear they shot in the West Branch River. So this is Mort Neff came to Hubbard Lake with Uncle Ranny, whoever he was, and some pike. You can see they're pretty fresh because they're still kicking here, Yep. So, and here's Walter Butekoffer, another personality around the lake. Sweet, sweet old gentleman. And he'd drive around. This was his red Jeep, and he had his camper on there. And his doctor told him, you need to slow down. He just parked down by Sucker Creek, or you'd see it parked. He'd be taking a nap in the back of his rig, his camper. And he had this set up so that I think you could take that out right there. You could take it out on the ice in the wintertime, and you take this board out, and he'd chop a hole in the ice, and he could fish right through there, sit right there and fish through there. So it's movie. But he would come into the Mama Mariah when we had the restaurant there, and he just come into the restaurant unannounced and said hi to my dad and everything. He'd just sit down at the piano. He had a piano in there, and he'd start playing beautiful songs and belting out. His favorite song was "The Buck is on the Run." I don't even remember how it went, but that was his favorite. But everybody loved to see him while they're coming. He was just a joyous man, and he made beautiful music. So I have fond memories of him. Here's a beer truck that went down this hill right here, and the brakes went out on it and went right in the lake, right there. And the people with the Popeye boat back here, their son Mike Potvin, he was out there for several days fishing beer bottles out of the lake after they pulled the truck out of there. There we go. Yep. There's Hubbard Lake back in those days in the 40s. We don't have time to fool around with that very much here right now, but there's Will's Gun Shop there, Mahalik Tavern, which is where Smokey's been. Holiday Inn is what Churchill Point Inn was called then. Werner Sandpit, Paul Bunyan Drive-In, I hope we get to that, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Over here, yep, love that.
That was fun.
Gerke Airport, was an airport over here. And, what else we got here? We got Crave's Cottages over here, Grossenbacher's store was down there at the end of Bali Road, right there on the lake. Grossenbacher's store, later Carr's store. My parents brought Crave's Cottages and sold them off individually. And here's the hardwoods, okay? Everybody wants to know about the hardwoods over on the west side there. So let's see what we got on page 135. A little bit of history about the hardwoods. Here we go. This is Lucille Miller. That's the Miller. Mr. Miller is the one that originally started the hardwoods, and then her daughter-in-law, Lucille Butler. Right, or they her daughter. Okay, let's see what we got here. George Miller of Miller Homes in the Detroit area is the one that started the hardwoods. Purchased about 1,200 acres and 3/4 of a mile shoreline from Hardwood Point south, from Garwood. He had something to do with speedboat racing, Garwood did, in 1940 or 41. George and his wife, Lucille, that's Lucille, built a lodge in 1947 and called their dream spot the Hardwoods. That's where you see all the lights over on the west side of the lake in the summertime. And the fireworks, by the way. That's the string of bright lights that we all see from every corner of the lake. The beautiful complex now consists of about 8 large buildings, including tennis courts. Dick and Norma Tracy serve as caretakers. This Hubbard Lake institution has been passed down to Jack and Lucille Butler, then on to grandchildren Keith, John Jr., Cindy, Sue, and June. George, as the story goes, was on the board of directors of a bank downstate when a bowling alley was foreclosed upon. His friends on the board had 2 full alleys dismantled and loaded on a semi. When George arrived at Hubbard Lake, the truck was in his driveway with 2 bowling alleys. That's how the Hardwoods bowling alley came to be, the bowling alley over there. So that's a short few tidbits on the Hardwoods there.
They still have the bowling alley there?
I don't think so. I don't know. Stories were that the local ladies would meet and bowl there. They had a ladies club or something, and they bowl over there years ago. All right. We're going to have to just, this is the West Shore Tavern, West Shore Rustic Tavern, okay? And some of the, let me get the owners here real quick. Dick and Mark Bozick bought it in 1960, and then Joe Vandaway had it later on, and he named it Pirates Cove, and he had a pet, at one time over, this was 40s, 50s, earlier, they had pet raccoons and a pet monkey there, who scared somebody to death, whatever. Here's the Stone Tavern back in the day, 1932.
That was sad.
Yep, and I can remember that I was going to church. I go right by there on a Sunday morning when I go to church, and this is this is the inside of the old Stone Tavern there. Yep, pretty amazing. A lot of character there, and a lot of beautiful pictures that were lost too.
Yeah.
Too bad. Every tavern around this whole lake has burned out at one time around. Every one of them. And here's what I was greeted with as I went to church. Like, whoa. You got to be kidding, that was quite a shock. So here's the Kramers across the road. They had Paul Bunyan Drive-In and the Joy Gift Shop. Lou is a real estate broker, and also the kind of the designated photographer for Ron. I wish I could find all of his pictures. I come across postcards once in a while. And his wife Hazelett was a real sweet lady. She used to come to my school on a rare occasion, and she would warble for us. She whistled, and she was absolutely amazing, the songs that she could whistle. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? You know, but she was a sweet lady.
Was there
That
still
was a
where
nice
the
shop, that was a real nice shop.
Yep,
Was it where the library was, like right there?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. That was a Joy Gift Shop
Nice
and
gift
the
shop, it was
theater.
really nice.
There's the Kramers being honored by George Romney, Governor Romney, for something or other they did here for outstanding efforts in promoting Michigan. They were big promoters of Hubbard Lake. Here's a Paul Bunyan Drive-In.
Drive-in,
And there was Kings Go Forth was playing, and the High Cost of Loving. I don't know what's playing on Tuesday there, but I can remember that.
That was Saturday night we went.
Show
Yep.
that to Tom, that's in book two.
And the guy, they talked to a few of them. I had classmates, and I think Mike Popman down here was one of them. There was a cow pasture all around it. Sometimes you'd be sitting in a movie, you'd be watching a movie, and you feel like you were being watched or something. You look, and there's a big old slobber-nosed cow looking right in your window against your window. Whoa, what was that? Oh my God.
Here we
And I can remember one of my favorite parts right underneath the screen. Lou used to have this big thing that had these blue bars on it. Well, it's a bug zapper. I spent more time when I was a kid watching the bug zapper than I did the movie. I think it was pretty amazing. And here's Bayview Tavern, later on Mahalik Tavern. This is Jerry Mahalik in front of it. They had a gas pump there. And here's Ed Mahalik, the guy that ran it, the guy that taught me how to build log homes and how to do stone masonry on the split stones and make fireplaces and all that kind of stuff. Great old guy. He loved the Tigers. And I'd go down there when he was building his son's place down on the east side of East Bay there. And in the evening, I was listening to Tigers late at night, and I'd go in, and he'd be listening to the Tigers, and Sparky Anderson was their manager at that time. I think they must have, maybe when they won in 1968, maybe. Was he the manager then, or 84? 84 probably. But anyway, Ed was always complaining about Sparky. They called him Captain Hook, because he always took his pictures out too soon. He put a repeat picture in there. So I took to calling Ed, because I knew he hated Sparky, so I called him Sparky. Hey Sparky, how you doing? Oh, Tigers, they're doing this. Oh well, gotta have some fun. Here he is with the Spruce Cubs. That's Ed. And he loved them, and he managed them, and he had them built a ball field out behind the tavern for the ball team. Someplace in one of the books, I don't have it here, but I had a picture of the ball team with their uniforms on, and it said,
STBA.
STBA. And I was trying to figure out, you couldn't see the rest of it, the letters were in it. So I asked somebody, and I said, oh, that's for East Bay. It said East Bay on, that was what they called the team nowadays. So anyway, there's Will's Gun Shop on the east side. They came here in about 1941. Old Fred Will right there, and this is Cal Will, his son, who died of a heart attack at age 48 with 11 kids and another one on the way. Just suddenly was plowing snow and died. This is all grown up, the trees are, and you hardly see the lake from here now. Wonderful people, and I'd love to have time to tell you about them. I did a tribute to all of them, both of them, Cal and Fred, in the book, but I'm not going to have time to go into that today. So we're just going to cut. There's Fred right there, great old guy. I love to hunt and fish.
And she's still loving her, right?
Lila does, yes, the wife. Yep, very nice lady. And here's Cal, a little tribute that I gave to him. Should read it. He was an amazing guy. He could do anything. I'm talking about anything in any realm. He just did it tackling. Here's my grandpa Milo. This guy right here. I can't see his face, but I can tell it's him by this stance right there. He's supervising this whole deal here, and he's got his, and this is in Spruce during the big snowstorm in 1948 probably. No, 48, 49.
47.
47, thank you, 47, it's in the book. But I mean, they had to, it was just craziness. They had to back up with the snowplow. All of a sudden, Gillard Road, they're trying to plow, and this big V-plow, and he'd ram into this as far as he could go until he stopped, and they'd back up, and these guys with shovels would loosen the snow all up, and then he'd ram into it again. You can imagine how long that took to get up the road, but that's all they had. All they could do, whoops. This is during that 47, the big Spruce and Hubbard Lake were snowed in for 2 or 3 weeks. They had to fly in bread and milk. That's what they're doing here. And Boyd Olson, who I don't know if he's still living, he was in Lincoln Haven home here. His wife just died a little while ago. Lived up on Scotts Hill. But he used to fly people, pregnant women, on skis off the lake, fly them into Alpena, to have their babies during times like this. There's my parents' wedding picture. This is my dad, Maury, and my mother, Iva, in their fancy schmancy car here. And that's on the steps of the Spruce Hardware. That's my grandpa Milo right here, and Grandma Ruth there. So that's 1940, I don't know what it was, 43 or something like that. Here's my mother, Iva Cornelius, and the Spruce Hardware there. Got a little bit of stuff going on there. Yep. I can remember that well when I was a kid. Here's downtown Spruce in later years. This is Wakeman's store here. And again, that's Thompson's Spruce Hardware. And you can see the gas stations. There's this Gillard's had Standard. My grandpa had Sinclair. I don't know what they had over here. What this was. I don't remember what they were. I think 5 gas stations. This is Agnes Drew's old Ford. I remember that. Back in the day, I used to ride my bike around there all the time. I would go out and when I take my wagon or ride around my bike, especially in the spring, and I pick up pop bottles. They were 2 cents a piece at deposit. And if you got 5 of those, you got 10 cents. That was enough to buy a pop at Wakeman's store right there. I still have one of the bottles, the first 16-ounce cola, big giant cola. I have one of the bottles at home and I saved it. I love that. They'd give me a big giant cola. I couldn't drink it all, I was too little, but oh well, I had to have that. Back in the day, I'd ride my bike up and down those streets. Little kids would go any place they wanted. You didn't worry about it. This is Wakeman's story here. This is Shirley's Wakeman's, her favorite saying that I remember. Whoops, wrong button. This is Shirley and her granddaughter, Peggy Heffelfinger. Nice lady. I must have been, this is my mother's grocery bill over here from Wakeman's store. She had an account there. Macaroni 22 cents, tuna 44 cents. It's a small store. It wasn't like Walmart, they had a little higher prices. But anyway, I remember Shirley always saying to me, if wishes were horses, we'd all have a ride. That was her thing. I must have been wishing I had more money or something. I don't know. This is Don Gillard, the Gillard picture, Lucille's husband here. And he had a nickname for everybody. He was a fun guy, always making jokes and everything. He called the mailman, Frank Hansen, he called him Hadacol. Because that used to be an old bottle of something, some kind of elixir or something. And they didn't know what to name it. They had to call it something, so they called it Hadacol. So they called the mailman Hadacol. My mother went into the post office one day with curlers in her hair, so she was curly forever after that. He called me, our dog's name was Mert. And my last name's Cornelius, so he called me Merton Camellia. Hey, Merton Camellia, how you doing? And of course, his nickname was Gabby. Gabby Gillard. Yep. He was a piece of work. Fun, lots of fun. That's people like that make life fun. Make life fun. Here is the East Bay team here, and we couldn't wait to Ned Mahalik by the Mahalik Tavern. And here's the Spruce ball team, the undefeated 1948 Spruce ball team, and that is my dad right there, played shortstop. And I don't know, a lot of the local guys, the mean girl down the bottom. Jerry Mahalik, that's Ed Mahalik's son, played on there, and I'm sure there's another one, Edward Mahalik's probably on there someplace too. Anyway, there's Edward Mahalik. They were, see if Frank, there's Gabby Dillard right there. And he would write up the stories on the ball team. He was the first baseman. And what did it say in the paper? Don Gillard laid down a perfect bunt and raced to first base, or whatever, write about himself. The story. Here's Hubbard Lake Corners. This is the Stone Tavern. This is Hubbard Lake Store. This is where Kramer's and later on the movie theater was there. And this was Dagenaw's garage there. And look at all the open ground. There's just open farmland around here. That's a dam over there. Whoops, where am I going? I'm on the wrong button. But anyway, that's a dam. I mean the darn, excuse me. Yeah, it's a darn over there. And so that's back in the good old days. Here's Bennett Tavern there, Churchill Point Inn. This is my mother running out to my Aunt Eunice, my Uncle Stan's wife. They're going ice skating out there. This is the south end of the lake. This guy, Dick Richmond, built the canal. There's a canal down here, Richmond's Canal. And we have a nice catch-up lake there. He was quite a guy, a developer here. His son-in-law, Carl there. I showed you picture over there. He's the fire chief here right now, anyway, Carl Smith. It's Dick's son-in-law. Here's Gary Gunderson from the South End. He's about 6'9" or something, whatever. This is Alpena High's best basketball team ever. They went to the state semifinals. And so I got it in here. There's Spruce with 5 gas stations in it. There. And this is from the, hey, look at me. We're almost going to get down here, right? Okay. Yep. How did I get that far already? Man, I just moved right on. We're right to the conclusion here or something. Look at that. This picture I took up on top of Mount Moriah. I want to read you a short conclusion here. Here's what I wrote. Closing thoughts. All of these dear folks we read about have been part of a great tradition. And you're part of a great tradition. You're now part of a great tradition. You're yes. Tell me your first name again.
Melinda.
Melinda, I'm sorry. You and your family tradition. The Hubbard Lake tradition, we are part of that great tradition. Some of us are part of a woods tradition, hiking, hunting, playing paintball, or just looking out the window. We're all part of sharing the birds, the snow, the winds, the buds, the flowers, the leaves, the beauty, the squirrels, the deer, the dragonflies, the mosquitoes, the ferns, the quiet, the clouds, the smell, the acorns, the dust, the dawn, the berries, the tree trunks, all of it. Some of us are part of the water tradition, walking on the sand, lying in the sun, listening to the waves gently lapping the shore, gliding across the glass, cranking with a glass cranking. Okay, I guess I'm talking about the water there, gliding across the glass, cranking in a furious northern wind, spudding through the ice, tasting the wind, bucking the waves, feeling the spray on your face, watching the red ball sink beneath the source of our pleasure, the sunset. Most of us are part of a family tradition. Cards, ball games, picnics, dinners, outings, cabins, fireplaces, boats, laughs, and fun. Whatever your tradition at Hubbard Lake, savor it, enjoy it, and most of all, pass it on. We have been given a wonderful gift, our sweet lake, and a wonderful heritage. So that's the story of Hubbard Lake.
Wonderful.